Hey guys, and happy Friday. It is Randy Mendez Parra with the Mendez Home Team at eXp Realty, along with Sharon Thompson at Alameda Home Mortgage. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Happy Friday. I'm excited it's Friday.
Me too. I have a busy weekend though, but still happy it's
Is it
Friday.
is it busy work or is it busy family?
Busy work. We have so many buyers out there, so I'm hoping we can write some offers this week to get accepted.
She's like, Randy, what are you doing? I need you to work too. So speaking of buyers, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about writing strong offers. And so, especially if you're a buyer in this market today, we just kind of want to talk to you about some highlights and some ways that you can strengthen your offer. And I think it's really important to have a game plan ahead of time. So on that note, this one, the very first bullet point might sound a little bit like a broken record because we're always talking about how important it is to lean in and have a relationship with a professional realtor and a professional lender. But on that note, the pre-approval is one of the most important components of that offer. And Sharon, I just want to give you an example. This week, being a listing agent, I got a couple offers, and a couple of them came over with pre-quals, not pre-approvals. And then when we called, which I will tell you, I don't know how many listing agents are actually calling the buyers lenders, because the truth is when you have 10, 15, 20 offers, it's not necessarily feasible, let alone necessary, right? Especially when you have cash offers. Point being, we went ahead and did some extra diligence and called, and the approvals were a little weak. So, they weren't really there. So first and foremost, my suggestion is make sure that you know your approval and make sure that you've done a deep dive. And what I mean by a deep dive, Sharon, is having that in-depth conversation with your lender of your maximum purchase power. What else can you do on the side of lending to strengthen your offer? Can you waive the appraisal? I was actually on a mastermind earlier this week, and they were talking about how you're dead in the water if you're financed loan because you can't waive the appraisal, and that's not actually correct, right, Sharon?
No, we've waived two in just the last 60 days, in fact.
Yep. So, know if you can do that, because again, the truth is that cash is flooding our market and it is hard to compete against. But again, if you know, hey, I can actually waive that appraisal, I could do a gap clause, which if you don't know what a gap clause is, but that's basically saying, hey, you know what, in the event that the property doesn't appraise, I'm still willing to pay X amount over. And again, you're going to have that conversation with your lender to see if you have that ability and that cash on hand to do that. So first thing, definitely do that deep dive and know ahead. What you don't want to happen is you're out hunting, you find the house, you have 3 hours to get the offer in, you're scrambling, and you're calling the lender to go, can I get approved, right? So that is the first thing. Second one kind of goes right into, and I won't stay on it long, but have an assertive, full-time local agent. So I'm not knocking anybody that's part-time in this business, but I'm going to really speak to the buyer here. Right now, you need somebody that's in the trenches, that's army crawling through this market, that knows what's happening, that understands it, has strong relationships, and is going to present a clean offer for you. And that kind of segues right into the next component, which is, what does a clean offer look like, right? And so, Sharon, I think that this is important because I'm seeing some shifting happening. And we used to be able to do things a little bit different. So we used to be able to, we used to see escalation clauses in our market, right? And so for those of you that don't know, an escalation clause is a really somewhat effective way to write an offer, because you basically can say, I will go up to X, beating out other offers by X increment, but I won't go above X. So it's a good way to put your highest out there without going directly to your highest. With that said, they are frowned upon in many markets and no longer acceptable in our market. And so when you're thinking about a clean offer, I was just with a buyer last night. In fact, one of our clients that are approved together, Sharon, and they were like, well, we'll write a letter. We'll get to writing a letter and we'll tell them all about our family. And it was just like a cringe moment for me, because I get it, right? I get it. But now letters are also a little tainted. Have you heard about this, Sharon?
That the letters are tainted?
Yeah, well, there's some controversy around them.
No, I haven't. I've still been encouraging people.
Yeah. So truth being is that I'm a relationship person. And so I always want to remind people that there's a face behind the offer. But now there's some controversy because, they became kind of a normal practice in our industry. And now they're touching a little bit on fair housing. So now if you're talking about, myself and my 2 daughters and, ex and my family, you could be violating fair housing. So tying into the importance of a local experienced agent when you want them to put together a clean, professional, compliant package, because you don't know who's on the other side. And really what you want to know is that you're giving that highest level offer package to whoever it is, right? If it's that super straight line person or whoever it is, like you want to make sure that maybe their number one thing is the bottom line. So for a clean offer package, you're really going to make sure that it's speaking to your strength. If you write a letter, you want to speak without, going into familial status or anything like that. You want to speak about the strength of your offer. And you want to put that package together, because here's what you want to remember. In that offer, you may only get one chance. So if you're him-hawing about should I or shouldn't I pay the home inspections? Should I or shouldn't I ask them to pay for half of the transfer taxes? Well, should I ask them $500 in repairs? Here's my advice. Think about, I get one chance and one chance only, and write it that way. So $500 here, $200 here, $75 here. Wouldn't it make a difference if you got the house? Then take it off the offer. Does that make sense, Sharon?
Absolutely. And to kind of touch on that too, when you said writing the letter, what I've seen change a lot in the market in the last 60 days is, as opposed to the letter, what we've been doing as a team and what I've been doing with other people is not so much the letter falling on the client, but the letter falling on the lender.
Yep.
And so having an experienced lender that isn't just an order taker, but somebody who is going to reach out to the listing agent. I would say probably on the last few offers, I've had to reach out to the listing agent, because everybody's like, oh, we have to write conventional. Conventional is way better. Oh, we have to put this much down because that's what they're going to look at. There's also something to be said for W-2. FICO score. This is what's in their bank. It's not a gift. And that is where the lender can come in with the permission of the buyer, and they can write a compliant letter that is actually more information than, please, I love your house. We have 2 daughters.
Right.
I'm a single mom, that sort of thing. I think that lender letter has actually been a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also say, as agents, that's a really safe practice to lean into, is just letting some data, numbers drive that strength and not going into the other side. So thank you, Sharon. I think that's a great point. Another thing that you can do is increase your skin in the game, which is your earnest money deposit, right? So I'm not seeing a huge, massive amount of this in our market. But again, I did just meet with some sellers that were going to be listing their home soon. And they had previously had an experience where they got all the way to the end and the buyer walked, and they had already moved their entire house to another state. And at the end of the day, the buyer's skin in the game was $1,000. Mm-hmm. So again, if you're competing with cash, sellers like certainty. They like surety. So I don't know, is surety a word? I think I don't know. It's Friday. We're going to stick with it, but they like that. So think about that, keep in mind you have your contingencies. So you're going to have some safety on that yourself. But if you put a little more skin in the game, that will help. Ultimately, I already kind of touched on this a little bit, but cash does talk. So if you don't have the ability to pay cash, think about, do you have the ability to pay some cash over appraisal? Do you want to do that? Are you comfortable with that? Again, lean into professionals, know what that looks like. I would encourage you, if you are doing that, to kind of look at it, not so much as the overall purchase, but like what does that mean over time, right? Because sometimes to lose $10,000 is painful, but it's worth it. So just kind of evaluate that. Another area that you can really strengthen your offer is in waiving contingencies. And so just think about this again, back to the same point. The more solid, clean, and sure that offer is, the better the seller is going to receive it, right? So for instance, we had an offer. We had a house that we walked, and we could tell unequivocally that there were some roof issues. There was a couple things that needed to happen in the house. So in that offer, we accepted as is. So we basically said, buyer accepts roof in as is condition. Buyer accepts this. So, I mean, some houses, not so much in our market, get pre-inspected, but visually when you walk through the house, if you know there's little things, you can go ahead and accept those. and that will help strengthen the offer. Have you seen some offers come through like that, Sharon?
Yeah, absolutely. Like pinpointing, we know that this is a problem,
Yep.
but we're going to overlook it. It is fixable. I mean, like we've talked about, cosmetic is easy. That's
Right.
easy to handle. But when we talk about bigger things, obviously, I have seen a lot of inspections waived. I've seen a lot of repairs
Yep.
waived. I've seen a lot of that going on lately. And once again, obviously to take it back into my corner is this is where I've had multiple conversations with some clients recently who had a different lender and then are just now expanding out to try other people and talking to me. And, lenders are super busy, just like real estate agents, but I'm hearing a lot of order takers out there. So it's also something to look at. Is your lender an order taker? Are they working to figure out, like I said, when we put in an offer, I'm running 3 to 4 specific scenarios to that house. If this, then that. If this, then that. And when I say if this, then that, I mean, if the appraisal comes in low, here's what we're looking at. If the appraisal comes in it, here's what we're looking at. How much of a down payment do we have? Can we, like I said, if they have 5, okay, we're going in with 5, but the appraisal comes in low, can we do a 3? So that way we can cover. What if we waive inspections, but what if we come back with some repairs? Do we have the money to reduce that down payment to handle those repairs? So like I said, it's also talking to agents and loan officers that are not order takers. What are we doing? How are we maximizing the money? So yeah, I've seen a lot of that. And I've also seen us dig into the financials, which we've never done as much as we have now, to figure out how can we make it work with the issues that we're facing to get people into homes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that ties right back to the security, right? When you can go to I will tell you, another offer that we were working, we had a cash offer and we had a financed offer. And my client, actually, the cash offer was coming from the proceeds of a sale, and my client was actually leaning towards the financed offer because he didn't want a contingency, was bottom line. And I just am empowering you with information, but as we proceeded and we kind of worked with both agents, we wanted a little more security. So on the buyer that had the approval, we wanted to find out, okay, how good is this approval? How, you're doing a conventional 3% down, but we just kind of need a lender to really give us, like, hey, don't worry about this. Just exactly what Sharon's talking about. We're locked and loaded. We planned for A and B. All we were looking for was some reassurance. Okay. Meanwhile, leaning kind of away from the other offer, but equally saying to them, okay, what kind of reinsurance? Could you possibly do a bridge loan? Could you, remove the contingency? Could you do X? Could you do Y? And I will tell you that it really came down, a large portion of it came down to the agents and the security they were able to deliver to my seller, because the other lender was never really able to give us anything that let us know he was solid. And response was also very not reassuring. It was almost panicking. And then on the other side, we found out where the property was. If it was in the appraisal, we found out who the lender was, knew the lender, the seller had belief and good faith in the lender, talked to the lender reassured us as to that buyer, talked to the agent who is representing that buyer. All that team was able to say, like, hey, this deal is solid. It is locked. It's ready to go. We're standing behind it. We have a plan A. We have a plan B. And that gave my seller the reassurance that he needed, that he ended up shifting from where he was originally going and saying, you know what, let's go ahead and go with this offer. I feel secure about it. So again, that is just kind of speaking to that security and the different things that you can structure. It's important to have those plans A and B. Another thing, is a quick close. So I know it's tough in this market, and I know that this industry is overburdened tremendously right now. Our volume is still, tenfolds, but if you can get a quick close, there are, again, if you are meeting with that lender up front and you're doing that deep dive that we talked about, and you're getting them everything that they need, you're already moving the process along. And so if you're ahead of the game and you're on top of stuff and you're on top of timelines, and like Sharon said, you don't have an order taker, you have somebody that is in the trenches, like on the phones, finding out when the appraisal is getting ordered, making sure it's getting picked up and staying on top of it, you could do that quick close. And I won't put you on the hot seat, Sharon, but I guess I will. I will tell you that, something that we are seeing is lenders even guaranteeing, like, hey, we guarantee that we can close this in 30 or 45 days, or we will give X, or we'll do X. So just know that's powerful. Lean into your lending professionals. Sharon got my phone call about 3 minutes after I got off the mastermind. I was like, hey, guess what I just heard about? And so, any thoughts on that part, Sharon?
I mean, I think that I got all the information that you sent me that you were very excited about, and you have to read the fine print on that, which is as if it is at the fault of the lender.
Right.
So with that said, it's not at the fault of the appraiser. It's not at the fault of the buyer, at the buyer. It is at the fault of the lender that they will guarantee that. So I think that stuff is great. I think lenders should back up their turn times. But also, if that's something that gets you excited, definitely read that fine print to make sure that you're not taking that offer over something else based on, what have you. Because I would say the majority of the lenders out there still have pretty decent quick closes. It's really been coming down to the appraisals that, sometimes the buyers have been on it. They're a lot more reactive than I've seen in the past. They are like, we can't lose this house. There's not another one out there. But, I would say that the appraisers are truly the ones that have been overwhelmed in this industry. And with a fast moving market, these appraisers are doing their best to hit the mark, but time, and so that's been the biggest holdup is so just make sure if we're having some of those, guarantees, what is it, where is the skin in the game?
But again, I think that even a timeline, I think that that's powerful when the seller is receiving that. I think if they're seeing that offer package and they're seeing that pre-approval and they're seeing that very clean offer, and then maybe they're seeing a timeline that says, hey, we will do this, this, and this by this timeline. Again, I think it's just about making sure that you position yourself as prepared, qualified, and ready, right? And committed. I think you need to show your commitment to the transaction as well. And so the kind of final bullet that we'll tie up on today is also rent backs. So a big concern for sellers in this market, and I hear this, and this is happening. I've talked to a lot of my partners, especially in Southern California. People are showing up on the doorsteps. They're knocking. Hey, will you sell your house to me? And so it's like it's a great idea, right? Like, hey, I'll pay you $60,000 above value. Will you sell your house to me? But here's what sellers are saying. Well, where do I go? Because there's not a lot in this market. So the seller who is getting over, ask for their house, that's great, that's exciting, but where do they go? So a way that as a buyer, I think that you can really strengthen your offer is giving a rent back, taking a little bit of that pressure off of the buyer. Again, you need to kind of talk to your lender. I think for most loan products, it's going to be about a 60-day max. Would that be about right, Sharon?
60-day max. And then the only other thing that I've recently started adding when I'm talking to agents when they're providing offers is an optional 30-day extension. So as we get through the process, we can order the appraisal. Appraisals are good for 120 days. We can get it through underwriting. We can get it all the way to the end. And if that seller is still struggling, we can put in the initial contract that they're eligible for a 60-day rent back plus a 30-day extension on escrow if needed. So that way there's no like, oh, we're not extending, the buyers have to move. It's like, okay, hey, they still haven't found a house. Let's extend escrow another 30 days or less and still offer that 60-day rent back from the time it closes. Guidelines tell you that if we're doing it as a primary residence, the buyers do have to be in that house residing in it within 60 days. So that's why we're at the max 60 days on a rent back.
But that's a good option to know. And so I think that that's just powerful. In this particular case, I have some sellers, and I tell you, we're going to hit the market pretty soon. And one of the things they're going to be looking for is that rent back, because twofolds. One, they've had experience before. I mentioned these sellers earlier, but they've had experience before. So this time they want to make sure the house is sold before they pack up and move out. And number two, they want some breathing room. They want to be able to relocate, find their house. Thankfully, they're not going to as, tough of a market. But I just really, of course, if we're talking to a seller, I'm going to talk to you about a rent back. I'm also going to even talk to you about entertaining a short-term rental. But point being, as a buyer today, we're talking about how to strengthen that offer. And really, I would highly suggest you look at, every way that you can make this more convenient, more clean, come off more professional, more prepared, and make this seamless for the seller. This is not the time to get tripped up in little things. This is not the time to to him-haw around a couple $100 one way or another. It's also not the time to say, well, I'm guilty of this myself. I'm buying and I want to be in the house by spring break. I have plans. I want to be in there, because the truth is that your inflexibility on when you go into the house could cost you the house. And so you really need to think about how you're positioning that offer to the sellers.
Absolutely.
So, anything else to add on my points there?
No, I mean, just kind of like what I said before, is that we are in a very fast changing market. So how can we write strong offers? It is really, once again, going back to interviewing multiple real estate agents, interviewing multiple lenders, and really sorting through who is going to work for you, who has the knowledge, who is going to reach out and physically make calls for you, because just throwing an offer out there is not going to get you the house. What's going to get you the house is calling a listing agent and figuring out what are the ins and outs. What is motivating the seller? What can we do to help the seller with their motivation? And that's not going with an order taker. That's not going with my mom's best friend. That's not going with the person that I've known forever. It is going with true professionals. A client that we closed last month, at the end of the transaction, we always have to do a credit refresh to see if they've opened any new credit. They had 12 inquiries. So one, I will tell you, this goes to their credit score did not change based on mortgage inquiries. And two, I was like, these are all mortgage inquiries. So you shopped me. And they're like, we did.
Did you guys feel good though? Like I
did. I felt great. I was like, and you still chose me. But I truly felt, like I said, we had a lot of COVID-19 bumps in the road right at the end with self-employed, and the buyers were great and we worked through it. But once again, that's not to toot the own horn, but it's working with a professional that has a lot of experience and can quickly, how can we get through this guideline? How can we get through this offer? How can we make it strong? Like I said, I'm putting together 3 and 4 scenarios for just one house. Like, okay, if this, if that. So, and the same thing with you, Randy, and other professionals like yourself, where we aren't coming in with, all right, let's write the offer 10K over and we'll guarantee the appraisal. It's, can we do a rent back? Can we waive this? What is the seller's motivation here?
Right. Well, and I would add to that, just to kind of end on this note, bandwidth of your agent is important. So I talked about, an assertive local agent, and I also mentioned a full-time agent. So again, you want somebody that's in here doing this, building relationships. People know them, trust them. They understand the complexities of the market and, just the inventory, different things like that, or the lack of, but also that is going to be able to act quickly. So for instance, for me, I have staff and I actually run a big team, and I do it so that I can better serve my client. Because here's the bottom line: if I'm running, anybody that's doing this full time right now, I'm going to aim to bet is getting a pipeline backed up of buyers. It's just natural to happen right now. So normally, where I'm probably running 20, 30, 40 escrows, I'm opposite right now with 20, 30, 40 approved buyers, right? It is what it is right now. And so we're having to go deeper. We're having to hunt on market, off market. We're having to do reverse prospecting, looking for sellers that might want to buy, not because we're looking for a listing, but because we're looking for a house for our buyer, right? So how do I do that? How do I, as one professional, take care of you and still find 20 other buyers, or 5 other buyers for that matter, or heck, for 2 other, just like Sharon's talking about, for one house, 7 different scenarios, for one buyer, 7 different options of inventory, right? So how do we do that? And then when that house hits the market at 3:00 and we know it's probably going to have multiple offers by 5:00, how do I get over there across town and show you that at your convenience and your schedule? Well, I do it through team, right? I'm a team with my mom, my daughter. I have amazing staff, and we 100% are an efficient team that works to serve our clients' needs on their time and on their spot. And so I think that that's something else to find out, is like, how do you handle your buyers right now? How are you going to hunt for me? And, it's not the days where odds are in a week you're going to have 2 or 3 options. I mean, we're sitting here going, oh my gosh, like there's There's one option. There's one option. Like, I can't tell you how many times a day that Jordy and I look at each other and we're like, oh, there's a house. And they're like, well, we're going to keep looking. And we're like, all right, well, we'll find something, right? There's not a lot. So you do want to have these conversations with your professionals. And as always, if you don't already have trusted professionals that you vetted and feel super comfortable with, we would love the honor to get to interview, to be your realtor and or your lender. And so you can reach me at 775-379-8344. And Sharon, what's your number?
949-201-8940.
So thank you guys. And we always love starting our Fridays off with you. And so if you need anything or have any questions, please let us know. All right. Bye,
Happy
guys.
Friday.